As I keep saying, there's no avoiding it anymore. We need to reflect on what needs reflecting on and uphold what needs to be upheld. But instead, we say we're scared, we're the victims, it's religious persecution.
That's really like jumping into a burning house.
Isn't this exactly the time when we should be talking together and finding the right perspective?
It's been such a long time since I've turned on the camera and greeted everyone.
It's been a really long time.
Honestly, ever since the news broke about Mrs. Han Hak Ja being summoned by the special prosecutor, things haven't been easy. How is it for you personally?
That's the hardest question. Given the current situation, it's something we're all curious about and can't help but ask. But at the same time, it's also the hardest question to answer. Honestly, everyone around me says the same thing. It's hard to tell if this is a dream or reality. My mind is a mess. My heart is a mess. And yet, everyone seems to share the same feeling. I wish someone would just tell us something.
Why is this happening? What should we do? And so on, so many questions.
All we can do is watch the news on YouTube. But what they talk about there isn't really what we want to hear or what we truly want to know. Instead, it just makes us feel more frustrated, anxious, and even angry.
And a lot of unrelated stuff gets mixed in too, right?
That's right. Honestly, I just want to run after everyone and explain myself, and those kinds of things keep coming up. Anyway, there are a lot of people around me in tears, and in the midst of all that, I really hesitated a lot, whether I should start this again or not. But maybe, especially at times like this, we should try to find the right perspectives together by talking things through. With that mindset, I think I agreed to try starting again together.
For those who have been a blessed family or a supporter in our unification movement, even if we don't talk about it at length, I think everyone can relate to and understand what this feeling is like. And honestly, even a single word exchanged can be really sensitive, especially at times like this. So I think that's why we had no choice but to start over.
That's right. All the more in times like this, I think there are things we need to set right. What's unfortunate is that, from our perspective, many leaders in the church, are they really responding appropriately right now? We definitely need to acknowledge what was done wrong. And trying to correct those mistakes, in that process, for us, that's purity, sincerity, and the right thing to do. We need to distinguish this, make our case, and create that separation.
Whether self-reflection or remorse is visible or not.
If we just keep defending ourselves and denying everything, but then more and more evidence keeps coming out, and on top of that, our lack of remorse in front of society, these kinds of attitudes end up backfiring. Every time we take some kind of action, it leads to even bigger problems. What's really unfortunate in this situation is that beyond the mistakes, even the parts of our history we can truly be proud of, and the legacy of True Father, all of that is being lumped together, devalued, and criticized. In this situation, we need to raise our voices and make clear distinctions.
Especially when it comes to the media or YouTube, the things labeled as Unification Church, the actions shown there, the reactions displayed, are constantly portrayed as if they represent the entire unification movement. But that can never represent the whole picture.
It's not the whole picture. From the outside, since that's what people see, they think the Unification Church is divided. Everyone knows this, but for the most part, we've remained silent until now. There are various reasons for that. Those kinds of issues.
Internal problems.
We'll gradually explain those as well, but I really worry about how to chase down and correct the things that are being seriously distorted and misrepresented.
Me too.
I hope that through this True Legacy TV, we can connect with many of our family members and have these kinds of conversations together. Rather, I hope that through times like this, we can reflect on what needs to be reflected on, correct what needs to be corrected, and in doing so, purify ourselves and find the right path forward.
But anyway, just like you mentioned, I recently heard that within the Unification Church, especially among those involved in the special investigation, there are rumors being spread that Dr. Hyunjin Preston Moon's side reported things like this and caused this whole situation. I was really shocked by that.
The media is saying the same thing, too. People talk as if, obviously, since this is an internal power struggle, the third and seventh son sides must be reporting things to try to regain power, right? That's the kind of talk going around, but we can't tell if that's really the case or if it's just something being said internally to sway public opinion.
What I heard for sure is that inside, they're deliberately spreading that kind of information to the people within the group. It felt like they were stirring things up, almost like agitation, creating something for outsiders to attack because things are so chaotic internally.
Honestly, I also want to speak out about those things a lot. When someone asks questions from the outside, since we do a lot of external activities now and sometimes deal with the media, they come to us with questions. We also,
What's going on?
since there's a history, can we get any information? Sometimes they ask us. But what we can do, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that we have roots we want to protect. And in those cases, we make it clear, no, that's not it. This is our foundation, this is what we've been pursuing, and these things are now being misrepresented or wrongly introduced. We definitely speak up about those. For example, right now, outside, there's Professor Hak Ja Han. If people like that are called Unification Church experts, I think we'll have to engage in a lot more debates with them going forward. It's fine to explain the parts you actually know, even if you don't know everything. But as it goes on, more and more fiction and imagination get added in, and they start explaining things as if they've seen everything firsthand. Those are the kinds of things we need to correct. Whenever situations like that arise, we need to say, that's not how it is. For example, things like the only begotten daughter theology are not fundamental divine principle. Take, for instance, the kinds of explanations about the current issues happening inside the church. There are constant reports coming out in real time from within. Why do you think these reports keep coming out?
Does that mean things inside have become corrupt?
Even just looking from the outside, we can see it. Everything is divided right now, honestly, with everyone having different opinions and conflicting interests. That's why these reports and stories keep leaking out.
That's why there's so many reports.
The truth is, there's an overwhelming amount that's piled up, and even if we don't say it, everyone watching this already knows. There's so much that's built up in everyone's hearts. Honestly, it's been the same for the past 10 or 12 years. When we tried to admit our mistakes and correct them, what happened when we spoke up about what was wrong? We made enemies. Back then, for example, with the Quack group and others, they made it so we couldn't even approach them. So everyone just pushed the blame that way, shoved everything over there, and tried to draw a line and submit. And as this has continued up to now, even now, people from Dr. Moon's side, from the UCI side, are still stirring up all these things. I genuinely think that it is neither truly honest nor genuinely desirable to try to win over public opinion by shifting the blame for serious crimes that someone else committed onto other individuals.
So, when there's a problem, everyone should work together to try to solve it. But if someone breaks the law or crosses a certain line, then it's not about who exposed it. If someone really did something illegal, then there needs to be a proper legal judgment, repentance, self-reflection, and other necessary steps. But it seems like there are still many people who can't distinguish between these things.
This is a sensitive topic, but you shouldn't compare what's happening now with the special prosecutor or any of the current issues to True Father's Danbury case. That is, all of our blessed families really need to think carefully about this. That is, no matter who thinks about it, Father's Danbury case actually became an opportunity for countless conscientious and righteous religious people to come together. At that time, organizations like the ACLC and many others were able to launch interfaith movements, but now there are clearly problems. Even if we say it's not our place to specify exactly where or with whom the problem lies, there are definitely issues. So, as I keep saying, we need to reflect on what needs to be reflected on and protect what needs to be protected. But instead, we just complain that we're being wronged and call it religious persecution. We shouldn't just label everything as religious persecution.
Honestly, that just backfires, doesn't it? In reality, if people with sincere faith and religion were to look at this situation and genuinely, conscientiously see that even though they are of a different religion, they are doing good work and trying to do something in a good way, and if they saw that this was being suppressed by external political forces, then people's consciences would be moved. But it's the exact opposite situation, isn't it? Absolutely, it's the exact opposite situation. But the moment you call this religious persecution, I wish people would realize that's like running into a burning house with a bundle of straw. It's reckless.
Honestly, today I was just planning to film a quick greeting video. But since this topic came up, let me share a few thoughts on whether this is religious persecution. When we think about freedom of religion or freedom of faith, the easiest example is the First Amendment of the US Constitution. That was the founding spirit of America. But what we really need to understand is why freedom of religion is so important. Freedom of religion means freedom of faith, freedom of conscience, and freedom to believe. The reason that's important is because humans need to have that freedom in order to pursue the declarations within their own nature, and through that, their spiritual consciousness can develop. For example, why is communism considered bad? It blocks that freedom because it prevents people from discovering their true hearts and consciences. That's why, even though America started as a Judeo-Christian civilization, it allowed religious freedom. So as long as something isn't illegal, everyone is free to follow their conscience and beliefs. That's how the foundation of liberal democracy was established. If you think about it that way, talking about religious freedom after committing a crime actually goes against our conscience.
To put it simply, freedom of religion, and not just religious freedom, but any kind of freedom, always comes with responsibility. For religion to truly be free, it should contribute to the public good or the common interest of society as a whole, and its expression should move in that direction. Freedom doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. That's not freedom, that's just indulgence. As a person of faith, you should clearly understand this. So calling all of this religious persecution is really a stretch of conscience.
Can religious beliefs and the pursuit of certain truths have a say in politics? It should, because it's about making contributions toward the right direction. But entering into power itself is the wrong approach. But if that's becoming a problem, then we need to use reason and clearly distinguish and discern what's wrong even within ourselves. But now, people are even dragging in other political powers to try to get out of this issue, which is only making the problem worse.
I heard there are even stories like that. They say, other religions do it this way too. We're just getting caught because we're unlucky. To me, this is something that some religious groups...
Isn't that just a shameless thing to say? I'm a bit cautious about this. But there are always people who cause problems everywhere. There can be people like that.
Yeah, there can be.
But that's still wrong. We shouldn't condemn the entire faith, but at the same time, other faiths wouldn't cover up for that either. Of course not. There are so many conscientious and upright believers who seek the truth. So I think you, the blessed families, need to stay clear-headed. There are things that break your heart, things you want to protect at all costs, and you should risk everything for them. But especially in times like this, we can't just hold on to everything and only defend ourselves. That's not the path we've walked. You need to speak frankly and sharply to the leaders as well. Draw a clear line. What's wrong is wrong, and what needs to be protected must be protected. That way, what we protect becomes a powerful message, and even outsiders will be concerned. You've probably heard people say that the Unification community used to be an incredible community. But now it's not the Unification Church of Sun Myung Moon's era anymore. It's just unbelievable. Back then, there was pride, and people in society would even say, Koreans have no idea how incredible Sun Myung Moon's achievements were on the world stage. But now, it's just incomprehensible. The current unification movement is so embarrassing. Everything has been forgotten now.
So, since this cannot be done only in a chaotic or scattered way, we are thinking of discussing this in more depth, with more weight, and with a greater sense of responsibility in the future.
We actually need to be prepared to talk about this, but right now it's a bit frustrating. Well, like I said earlier, I hope this part of the conversation doesn't get edited out. There are a lot of people who want to talk about this, and we want to represent those voices by focusing on the right points. So if we say something wrong, please let us know later and help us express it better. As we go on, we'll probably come up with a lot of thoughts and ideas, but do you think we can pick a few topics and keep doing this consistently? I think this is a situation where we need to keep at it consistently. Right now, above all else, we need to make this our top priority and do our very best. Did we talk about what kinds of things we should do?
First of all, I definitely want to mention the misconceptions or misunderstandings about our movement that keep getting repeated or are spreading indiscriminately.
Rather than just letting our thoughts scatter, I think it would be good if we could talk about what kind of perspective we should have and how we should approach these things from a more principled or providential point of view.
And especially among many members connected within this unification movement, there have been countless incidents that occurred during the past 10 or 15 years of division. But when it comes to those incidents, it's clear that, like the blind man and the elephant, Each person only knows a small part and believes that to be the whole truth. But regarding that, I think we need to have a much deeper and more comprehensive conversation, bringing together all the materials, the truths that have come to light, and everything else.
They keep saying the same things as before. There was a split in the Unification Church, and Dr. Hyunjin Preston Moon, the son, left with 80% of the assets, leading to a legal battle among the family over inheritance.
I was honestly shocked to see them describe it as if he just abandoned the lawsuit. Fact check. The Family Federation side has filed more than 30 lawsuits against Dr. Moon over the past 16 years, all of which they either lost or were dismissed. Dr. Moon has never initiated a lawsuit first. I mean, if they're a media outlet with any credibility, shouldn't they at least have checked the facts on something like that?
Most of it is just on YouTube, and now, since everyone is in a rush to say something, they just add their own imagination to whatever they hear. For example, because of things like this, it's time for us to respond with clear evidence. Things like exactly how the so-called separation actually happened, stories about someone initially being the successor and then ultimately not being the successor, significant issues about assets, or even lawsuits.
In the end, all of these things are bound to be connected. Our beliefs, our systems, our theology. They inevitably end up being linked together. When we talk about the most important and fundamental aspects, honestly, when we talk about our unification movement or the legacy left by Sun Myung Moon or his teachings, no matter how much we emphasize what their substance is, what their direction is, and what their essence is, it's never enough. So we need to delve even deeper into those contents.
The principled aspects, the providential aspects, and in some ways, the theological aspects that we are developing, though honestly, we don't really want to call it theology. We want to pursue universal truth. Anyway, the content of the principle that Father discovered, taught, and revealed to us as he walked his path has been distorted so much during this period. Within the church community, for over a decade, people have tried to rationalize the idea of the only begotten daughter in any way possible. What if we explain it this way? What if we explain it that way, while putting the principle on the back burner? So now it feels like everyone has forgotten it.
It's reached the peak of rationalization.
And in doing so, the very foundation of the principle has been distorted. Honestly, a lot of the current situations are talked about in this way. People mention the Tower of Babel. Sorry, but from our perspective, it's not just the building that's the Tower of Babel. Ultimately, it's the principle that's been tampered with. The very foundation of the principle has been touched, and even God's standards, even his absoluteness, are being challenged now. Because of this, these things can only be seen as judgment from heaven. And
honestly, I think that many of the ordinary members inside, so to speak, the regular members, feel this to some extent in their conscience. Many people know it. They feel it, but they're suffering because of it. Even though they feel it, the truth is there hasn't been any real response or action taken about it. So all that rationalization has just piled up layer by layer. This isn't a problem that someone else can solve for you.
now there's no way to avoid it. Especially for public officials, you really have to make a life or death decision now. Even now, there are probably a lot of people on the ground who aren't telling the members the true essence of the only begotten daughter doctrine.
In Europe, they really tone it down. They don't express it as directly as they do in Korea.
In Korea, too, there are many places that tone it down at the local level. Over time, people have started to explain the true nature of the only begotten daughter doctrine more boldly. But even now, many regular members still think, well, what's the problem if Father is the only begotten Son and Mother is the only begotten daughter, and the two became one to become the true parents? So, although we can't address everything today, I hope we can use this channel to work together with various people to correct these kinds of misunderstandings as well.
As we talk about this, I realize it's not just about us speaking up enthusiastically. In fact, if we start raising our voices a bit louder, I believe that the voices of many others who haven't been able to speak out will eventually come forward as well. I really hope that happens. If you've ever felt a pang of conscience, for example, if you felt stifled in a church environment where the only begotten daughter doctrine keeps being pushed, then even now, please don't ignore that voice of conscience. Let's bring these issues out into the open and work together to create a truly living community.
On the other hand, there are those who oppose what we're saying.
Right? People are opposing.
People who say we're wrong, that we're too old-fashioned, and ask why.
Now you pose us.
If you believe this is the principle, that this is more correct, then even now we need to open up channels for communication. We're always open to it, so I hope more opportunities like that will arise.
For us, the turning point in this special investigation situation was when Mrs. Hak Ja Han ended up appearing before the special investigation. That day was the 17th, I checked, and it was September 17th. Starting from that date, a huge number of new people suddenly started joining the Pioneer online forum. I was surprised that day and wondered what was going on. So I checked, and in just one day, over 40 people applied to join. Since then, people have continued to join. Naturally, as more new people come in, there have been a lot more debates as well.
But are you actually accepting these new members? Seems like you're not letting them in.
Still, we ask that people who want to join meet certain criteria, like providing their real name, affiliation, and, for example, their contact information. That's because for over 10 years, there have been people who sign up using fake or stolen identities to file false rights infringement reports or to carry out organized smear campaigns. So, we do our best to filter those out. If there's no reason to be suspicious, we generally allow people to join. We are accepting new members, but lately there have been so many cases like this that it's honestly hard to tell who's real and who isn't, since we don't have an official list or anything like that.
There might be some people who don't know what the forum we're talking about is, so how about giving a brief introduction to Pioneer Online Forum?
Pioneer Online Forum, it used to be Carp Cafe.
Collegiate Association for the Research Principle.
Yes, when I was a member of the Family Federation in CARP. And while I was playing a public role there, we created the online forum. It was during a time when these kinds of conflicts were really coming to the surface. And we felt we needed to open up and talk about these things. What is true, what is false, so that's why we started it.
To put it just simply,
Yes.
there are probably people who think that way right now, like those people are really a problem. And that's understandable, because just like we're doing now, we point out what's wrong, we ask questions, and we try to have discussions. We've always been like that, but because of the nature of the community, it became, we have to exclude those people. But actually, about 10. Was it years ago? Back then, we were the ones raising our voices inside the church, saying something was going wrong. When I think about what we meant by something was going wrong, and for those who remember what we did back then, the time we were saying things were going wrong was when Sean Moon and Justin Moon were
changing the church to the Unification Church.
It's truly time for a significant change. Back then, when we clearly said, we absolutely need to talk about this because it's fundamentally wrong, so many people adamantly insisted that staying completely silent was actually helping the situation. I want to ask them now, do you still genuinely think that way? Was that really the right and proper thing to do at that particular time? I think that was precisely the problem. When it's time to talk, we absolutely need to talk. That's precisely how we find healthy and proper standards for our community. But we weren't allowed to do that at all. We wanted to say, this is clearly false information, it's wrong, it's not principled, it's not love, but there was absolutely nowhere to say it openly. Actually, now that I truly think about it, I distinctly remember I once wrote something quite similar about this on the Family Fed homepage, and it caused a huge commotion and a lot of trouble. I got blacklisted, it was a complete mess. I had completely forgotten about that incident. Even the highest elders expressed their deep concern, so I had to go back and immediately delete it. But is there really no space among us where we can post important things like this? Even now, is there a place within the church where we can openly ask these kinds of challenging questions? There wasn't back then either. So as we diligently looked for a suitable place to talk, we eventually found a college student forum we were managing, and that's precisely where we started the crucial conversation.
That was the beginning, and at that time, I think there was a lot of conversation going on to some extent. At that time, around 2009, it was like this.
Space used to have a lot of nicknames. Old stories come to mind vividly.
Traitor Forum. Rebel Forum.
Anyway, as things turned out like this, we became what you might call a problem child, but
Anyway, the main point is, when you ask what kind of place this forum is, I think its identity has always been the same. Back in the days of the CARP era, and even now, it's always been a space where we can talk about fundamental issues, a place to discuss those things. That hasn't changed at all.
back then a lot of people would come by and have conversations, and we boldly created an anonymous message board.
And then,
Sometimes in those conversations, it was hard to truly tell whether something was genuinely true or completely false, and there were also posts that often felt a bit low in overall quality. Still, the primary reason we kept that space going was precisely because it was the only place where genuine content and honest voices could truly come out. But over the years, the significant reason why its use declined so much was in part because
Manipulation, suppression of rights, manipulation.
first of all, you know what our believers are truly best at, indeed.
Don't go.
Don't look, don't listen, don't meet, don't even come into contact. So a lot of people,
Withdrew.
I think maybe it was even done in an organized way. Another thing, as you mentioned, is the indiscriminate and unethical reports of rights violations, those kinds of things that make people frown. Because of that, the function had faded a lot, but recently many people have started to take an interest again and want to have conversations, genuine conversations.
Because of things like that, I think it proves that this is ultimately the only remaining space where we can communicate. Even now, after this situation has happened, this is really the only place where we can share our thoughts. Sometimes it gets a bit heated, and that's honestly both unfortunate and precious at the same time.
If I were to come here with malicious intent and deliberately try to take over the management or oppose the right to participate, then we would have no choice but to seek legal action.
We have to. We really have to.
Up until now, we've let things slide because we considered ourselves a family, but from now on, we will handle things clearly. So, for those who may have acted that way before, I strongly ask that you refrain from such actions so that we don't end up hurting each other or feeling awkward.
So that we can communicate well and honestly, and so that everyone can think together about what the right direction is.
I hope our culture matures to the point where we can soon close the anonymous message board.
Since we also have a real name message board, I think it would be good if we made an effort to talk more there as well.
It would be nice if we could meet and talk without this space.
I hope you will do that.
That would be great.
For the past 10 plus years, we've been constantly asking for open discussions, right? We said, let's just open it up and do it together. The reason we do this is because as members or former members of the Unification Movement community, we all feel that sense of frustration, and we all have questions like, where is the hope? We want to find answers to those questions. And I believe there are so many people who share that feeling. Everyone dreams of the moment when this division is healed and we all move forward together on the right path. That's why we're working hard, and I hope that those watching this will not just watch passively, but will engage in deeper, more active reflection, conversation, and communication.
I hope more young people will come. It was originally a college student online forum, you know.
Even now, at the entry page, the forum's name still says, Pioneers Creating the Kingdom of Heaven. That was our slogan. It was meant for people who saw themselves as pioneers building Cheonilguk.
It would be great if there were more young people who could engage in mature reflection and be exposed to a variety of perspectives.
And those who are young at heart, too.
Yes, that's right. I think we should greet everyone in various ways with different perspectives more often.
I look forward to seeing you again and hopefully meeting you in person someday. Thank you for taking the time.
Yes.